1. So in 2018, I was a freshman in college, and after being unemployed for a month, I took a job at a major sports department store where they don't wear blue. So my store manager, Daniel, was a major phallus. He'd make crude jokes that get him reported to HQ, gossip about employees to other ones, and generally favor men over women. So I worked at this store for nearly a year, and the turnover rate was abysmal. They'd hire many people who were still in high school and expected them to devote 20 hours a week, which of course was not what they'd signed up for, as many wanted about 12 to 15 since they were involved in extracurricular activities. However, Daniel showed no remorse and would often drive people to quit, either by dropping their hours to less than 5, or hiking them up to 30, knowing that they couldn't work them, which often left us understaffed. Phallus. The store was attached to a mall, so we got a lot of petty traffic that would turn into actual sales. However, due to the lack of training by Daniel and his poor oversight in appointing people to train new hires, the customer service in the store was falling dramatically, which halted sales, which led to a decrease in merchandising. The store was a $12 million store when I started, but it fell to $8 million in a few months because HQ was losing money by stocking a poorly managed store. Daniel took out his frustrations on the staff, and here is where the malicious compliance starts. Daniel was on a good reviews crusade, and often demanded us to comply with the customer, even if they were dead wrong, just so they'd leave a good review. I worked in footwear, and there is nothing like the anger that arises when you tell someone that the oh-so-popular shoe that they desire is out of stock in their size. Because a customer got upset with me over their size being out of stock, I was charged with cleaning the bathrooms. I never did this, because, like the overachiever I am, I learned how to work in multiple departments without getting a raise. Thus, Daniel was a wee bit appreciative and never asked me to clean it. Now, I am easily disgusted. The mere thought of rotten food or bugs or anything I deem ungodly deplorable will get me dry heaving. And I explained this to Danny Boy, but he just replied with, "Just get it done." So me and Brent went to clean the men's bathroom, since it was a two-person job, and I might mention that Brent's disgusto-meter is also not tolerant. So we sprayed Febreze, took out the trash, and ran out of there for our lives, leaving the dirtied mirrors, toilet paper floors, and shit-stained walls untouched. I came in the next day and was told that I did an awful job and that I was never to clean the bathrooms again. So when Daniel asked me to do it a few weeks later, I reminded him of his instructions, and we all watched in marvel as a manager cleaned it, which he said was a big deal since it was not in his job description, but yet it wasn't in any of ours either, since he had told many of us the store had janitors in our interviews. But that's just a mini-MC. I had grown tired of Daniel in my waiting months at the store. Many of my friends had quit or found better jobs. The hires got worse, and Daniel got much ruder. He attempted to show dominance at any chance he could, and even forced a "Do we have a problem here?" convo with me when I didn't rush to change into a new company uniform that was not my size because I was helping a customer, which then resulted in me getting chewed out because my boobs were popping out and my figure was showing too much, as a result of the medium-ass shirt I was forced to wear. But Daniel committed to his paladin-esque crusade and denied us basic human rights in the spirit of good customer service. A pregnant co-worker with a doctor's note was denied a chair while working at the register. A co-worker with seething cramps was not allowed to go home, though she couldn't stand. And another was barred from taking off to witness her daughter's prom send-off. But in contrast, a guy left his phone at home, and he was allowed to not only get it, but take the rest of the day off. Another called in because of a hangover and was told to rest up, and that he wouldn't receive a strike. And his favorite star boy was allowed to disappear often, and be on his phone right in front of Daniel, and he didn't even bat an eye. Even the men there obliged to the notion that they were treated far better than the female staff. And one day, Daniel chose to single me out. Not to toot my own horn, but I am a hard-ass worker, and Daniel abused that by scheduling me my shifts in different departments, and speed training me knowing I'd catch on quickly. I even had to train new employees, though I wasn't a lead, because I got good reviews and conducted the most footwear services last year. And after I demanded a raise, my $11 an hour, 35 to 45 hours a week summer paychecks, were looking nice in spite of the horrible managing. But school started up again, and I informed Daniel that I needed to return to my somber 15-hour weeks that I had last semester. He said that I was lying, and that he never gave me such little hours, till I hit him with a pic of the schedule that I had for March. He didn't like that gin tap, and replied with,
"Well, I'll see what I can do."
So next week, I see the schedule and see that not only was I scheduled from 12 AM to 6 AM for inventory, but those also were my only hours. 6 fucking hours. But I think, oh, they ain't doing you dirty, KV, this is obviously a mistake. So I seek out Danny the Manly and tell him of his mistake, and he responds with,
"That wasn't a mistake, you said you needed less hours."
"Yes, but I can't work past 10 because I have school. I just wanted to drop to about 15 to 20 hours, which is more than I did last semester."
"Well, everybody has to work inventory."
But Lindy and Richie don't, because they also have school, plus Lindy, Richie, and Michael all have more hours than me, but they're all in high school and just started working here. He's starting to notice he's running out of excuses.
"Well, they're more available, you, and we award availability. If you can free up some time, well, maybe we can talk in a month. But you need to get your priorities straight."
You got it, dude. So, as someone who takes disrespect with a pillar of salt, I considered quitting right then and there, but my anxiety kicked in and began to worry about cash flow. So I went home on my break and complained to my family. And my mom so eloquently suggested, "Just quit the damn job if you got this damn stressed. It ain't like you got a family to feed." So I took my single, no-child, having empty-bellied ass up there and worked the last 2 hours of my shift. The air in the building hit different, knowing I wouldn't have to spend any more time in it awake than I did in my own home. I was calm, cleaned the footwear deck efficiently, and made sure I was the last to clock out. As I approached Daniel at the exit, I said, "So yeah, this will be my last day here. I got my priorities straight, and school is my number one. I recently got an internship there, and I'll just go there, because they are more accommodating to my needs as a student. Thanks for the time here. Sucks that we couldn't work it out." And with that, I watched his face turn white. And he said something about not being able to work for the company again due to my lack of 2 weeks' notice. Didn't care, was never going to work there again. And now every time I come to the mall and he happens to see me, he doesn't look me in the eyes or speak to me, and rushes away from the counter so he doesn't have to ring me up. You got what you wanted, Dan. 2. Nobody likes a lunch thief, and I had one of the most aggressive at my office. There were rumors for a few months leading up to the inciting incident of someone going around and taking people's lunches. Just about every day, someone different would complain that their lunch was missing. It even happened to me once or twice. But I figured, hey, it's a big office. A few people are probably careless and grab the wrong lunch and are too embarrassed to bring it back. Or someone else packs their lunch and they don't know what's in theirs, so it's not obvious they have the wrong one, or whatever. Most people just brought brown paper bags with their names on it anyways. Or identical Rubbermaid Tupperware with a little piece of labeled tape on the side. It was easy enough to mix up. I had accidentally grabbed the wrong lunch once or twice, but I noticed before I got it open. I thought I was just more careful, or even just not as busy as some other people in the building. However, other people weren't as forgiving, and a quorum made complaints to HR. They were blown off. Personally, at the time, I thought it was all much ado about nothing. But then it began. My wife enrolled in a French cooking class online, and just about every day I was bringing fancy gourmand leftovers in for lunch. You'd think I was picking up a to-go bag from a Michelin-star bistro on the way in each morning. She really threw herself into the coursework. There were no problems for about 2 weeks, maybe 3, until one day my lunch went missing. Considering what delicacies I had to look forward to, I was pretty miffed. But I did a once-over around the break room and didn't see anyone eating my lunch, so I figured someone grabbed my bag by accident earlier. Saw how things looked, and realizing it was their lucky day, didn't bring it back to the fridge. I wrote the mysterious stranger off as an asshole, but accepted the loss and looked forward to dinner that night instead. Next day, I write my name on my lunch in extra bold lettering, jam the bag into the back of the fridge, and feel peace of mind. I get there come break time. Nope, it's gone. I was pretty upset, but I figured it was a stroke of bad luck and left it at that. What else could I do? However, third day, out of an abundance of caution, I kept my lunch at my desk, a pain because I had to eat it fairly early in the day to avoid spoilage. But at least I'd know where it was. I got up to take care of some business down the hall, and when I came back... Yep, my lunch was gone. Unfortunately, that didn't help me narrow it down much at all, because my desk is centrally located, so everyone's constantly passing by. At that point, there was no possibility of the theft being arbitrary, so I approached HR and filed a complaint. Their response, practically verbatim, was, "Employees' lunches are their personal property, and the company is not responsible for lost or stolen personal items." The following day, my wife packed a cream-based soup that really had to be refrigerated. I was passing by the break room to check on my lunch practically every 5 minutes. Somehow it still managed to disappear. I was irate at this point and returned to HR and really blew my top. The best they could do was send a memo around about remembering to check the name on your lunch when you remove it from the fridge. But they made very clear that it was a routine memo and in no way related to my complaints, which were not their jurisdiction. So not an admission of responsibility, because my lunch was my own personal problem. The only suitable alternative to packing a lunch available in the building are those wretched shrink-wrapped ham and cheese sandwiches from a vending machine. They've been marinating in the heat for God knows how long, and the bread is as stale as a corkboard, and the meat is rancid, and there's gluey mayo smushed into the center. It's a relic of the old office tenants, I'm pretty sure. I vented daily to my wife, but her only idea was to start bringing a regular sandwich and apple again, to dissuade the thief and get him to move on to other lunches. So, determined to prevent this low-life scum from downgrading the quality of my lunch, I hatched an elaborate plan. Then the pandemic hit and I forgot all about this whole saga. I worked remotely for months and months, then we returned, and after all that had happened globally, this was the last thing on my mind. But I got to the break room the first day back, frustrated from having to wear a button-up tie after months of working in pajamas, sore from my desk chair and exhausted from small talk, only to find my lunch was gone. This was a particularly sore point, because my wife and I divorced between my last lunch and work and the present one, so I did not appreciate being reminded of any past threads involving her. I pretty much flew into a blind rage at that point, especially seeing that stupid worthless memo about checking the lunch bag names posted in the break room, feeling so helpless and so hungry and so alone, and it was me and my lunch against the world. I stormed out and was determined to return the next day with a plan. So I came in the following day with an empty lunch bag. And I checked closely to be sure no one was watching, and I switched the contents of the HR person's lunch bag into my bag. So now their lunch appeared to be my lunch. They'd packed a regular brown bag, so I just discarded that and I left. And I waited. I knew this was a pretty big gamble, because it was contingent on the theory that the thief was avoiding me while having lunch, but not wary of anyone else. So would eat out in the open if there were no risk of bumping into me. So I made a big show of going around the office announcing that I was heading out for a meeting, and that I wouldn't be back until at least 3 p.m. I even went to the trouble of moving my car out of the lot to a space 2 streets over, where I then sat in my car and worked remotely for several hours, before sneaking into the building and up the back stairway. I then sat in the stairwell just outside the break room, where you can hear chatter and can't be seen. After about 20 to 30 minutes of waiting, I heard it. The sweetest sound I'll ever hear in the office.
"What the heck, Kyle? That's my lunch."
It's not your name on the bag."
"Give me that."
I'm assuming they grab the bag and see my name.
"Yeah, let's head to my office for a chat."
The HR rep later called me in as well and said they were aware of my break room hijinks, but it was obvious that the point still came across loud and clear. They warned me that it was a violation of policy to move another employee's lunch. It took every ounce of self-control to keep me from retorting. I thought our lunches were our personal property, and the company was not responsible for them being lost or stolen. They informed me they located the thief and things would be handled accordingly. But better than whatever write-up they might be able to issue Kyle, it revealed as the lunch thief occurred in front of the whole break room. So word quickly spread as to who'd been stealing everyone's lunches earlier last year, and he is now the office pariah. He was in line for a promotion. The promotion is indefinitely off the table. And I also earned brownie points for exposing him, though more than I'm satisfied with are being attributed to HR. At the end of the day, though, I didn't do this for credit, or even the sweet, sweet, sweet revenge. I did it to get my lunches back. 3. So this is a story my dad told me some time ago. My dad used to be field maintenance for the post office. Basically, if a mail truck broke down, Dad would go out with a special truck to tow it. Priority over all things, usually. If post office machinery needed wrenching, Dad did it, moderately high priority. If a blue mailbox needed a paint touch-up, Dad did it, very low priority. One day, Dad gets sent on a job out into a post office in the boonies, nearly 3.5 hours long drive one way, if traffic was favorable. This job was a repaint of the parking lot. You can figure this job wasn't exactly high priority, so they've already been waiting quite a while for it to happen. Dad gets to the site, and the equivalent of the floor manager gets snippy with Dad, telling him that he was just going to have to sit on his hands and wait for 2 more hours. Apparently, the floor manager had some project planned for that day that would require moving a bunch of stuff outside temporarily, using up the parking lot space. He fully expected my dad to stand around and wait for this job to be done. You filed a work order and you've been scheduled for this job for a while now. You knew what date I was going to be arriving. I am here.
You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait.
No, I'm not. I'm starting the job I was sent to do. Dad spins on his heel and heads for his work truck to grab the equipment. The floor manager charges outside, screaming at the top of his lungs.
You will not paint this right now. You will wait when I say you can paint, and I say you will wait 2 hours.
Dad looks absolutely pissed. If I put my equipment back in my truck, I will close the work order and you will have to file another one. The floor manager storms inside and returns with the postmaster of that post office. A spineless, sniveling, hand-wringing twig of a man.
Look, I know you're here to do this job we requested, but really, is it too much to ask for you to wait until this project is finished? It's only 2 hours.
I drove 3.5 hours to get here. Either I start right now and head for my home base on time, or I close the work order and end the job. The postmaster whimpers and wheedles and wrings his hands and nods.
Close the work order, I'll file another job order, and you can return tomorrow.
Dad smiles thinly and climbs back in his truck to head back to his home post office. He then calls his own postmaster and explains what happened.
Well, give them what they want. Close the work order.
Now here's the malicious part of the compliance. Dad and only 8 other guys covered an area of approximately 250 miles or so. So, yeah, way understaffed. For a visual, if I recall correctly, he had stories from Redding, California to the north and down to Bakersfield, California in the south. Pull out your Google Maps for that bad boy. They managed a well-oiled machine routine to let jobs accumulate, then spend a day doing those jobs in that direction, then picking another direction with another bunch of jobs. Also, to get any requested jobs done, there was a whole bureaucratic mess to make it happen. You had to write a work order, send it in, get put on a waiting list, and hope that a bunch of broken-down trucks didn't bump you further down the list than you already were. If your work order was closed, whether or not it was actually completed, the job was considered fulfilled, which means that it could not just be reopened, they have to file a completely new work order, and be listed accordingly in the many, many higher priority jobs. Since this post office was out in the boondocks with an extremely low priority job, on a very understaffed workforce, They've essentially shot themselves in the foot by refusing to let Dad get started immediately. I can neither confirm nor deny that their new work order mysteriously dropped to the bottom of the list of priorities a few more times than necessary, but I can confirm that it was at least a further 3 months before that parking lot got painted. The floor manager made himself scarce, and the spineless post manager was very, very quiet when he signed off on the work order's completion. 4. Before we begin, I'd like to say that this story may seem familiar to some others, as I found out that this kind of incident isn't as uncommon as I first thought. Whilst I personally think that this is unfortunate, it's just how life is sometimes. I had a friend, Josh. Josh and I had been friends since we were young. Turns out liking Transformers, wrestling, and Hot Wheels makes it really easy to make friends in elementary school, or primary school, for those on the other side of the Atlantic. Josh originally was a pretty good guy, but his parents had issues with one another and eventually split up. His mother remarried, and his stepfather began to spoil Josh rotten. Josh began to become a lot more antagonistic, and we grew distant as the years went on. But I tried to remain friendly with him, hoping he'd eventually see the error of his ways. He went through multiple relationships, all of them ending by his hand, but I was unaware as he only spoon-fed me information and made the other party look like they were in the wrong. The incident. Josh had recently had a breakup with a girl, Megan, who I was friendly with before the breakup. Whilst I was worried about Megan due to us being friends, I stupidly decided to check on Josh first. Now I had let Josh borrow stuff from me, including multiple gaming consoles, clothes, and even a few bits of furniture. I tried to be a good friend, but I didn't know that I was being taken advantage of. We had decided to order some pizza, and Josh had unwittingly ordered from Local Pizza, where Megan worked. Local Pizza doesn't deliver. Josh persuaded me to go and get the pizza. In reality, he basically demanded it, because he was too lazy to drive that way. I decided to bite the bullet and just drive my way to Local Pizza and walked inside. Lo and behold, I met with Megan, who was on break at the moment. Megan and I spoke about things, and the topic of Josh came up. It was busy and our order wasn't even done yet, so I didn't mind stopping to chat, until Megan began to tell me her side of things. It turned out that Josh had been a major jerk to Megan, until Megan's brother Drake stepped in and pulled his sister out of the relationship. Drake had been a friend as well, but Josh had fed me lies, so I stopped speaking to Drake. I didn't want to believe Megan at first until she called Drake, who corroborated her story. It was a lot to swallow. Josh's breakups began to make a lot more sense now, and I felt sick. Was I friends with a horrible person? I asked Megan some questions, and she told me her side of the story, and ended up calling out a lot of Josh's flat-out lies. After the pizza was done, I promised Megan that I'd talk to Josh about this as someone who'd been close to him for years. She thought that maybe I'd be able to get through to him. We were both wrong. I got back to Josh's, and we just spoke about things until I managed to get on the topic of Megan. I mentioned to him that we spoke and what she said. Big mistake. He got angry and called Megan a fat lying witch and declared that I shouldn't believe her. I told him that Drake corroborated her story and that I was going through a lot of stress trying to make heads or tails of all this. Josh, now absolutely livid at me, screams at me, "Shut the fuck up, get the fuck out, you wanna believe that whore? Take your shit and go." I was shocked. I tried to say something, but Josh cut me off. "You should get the fuck out and take your shit. Get the fuck out of my house. You want to fucking believe her and that stupid brother of hers? Fine. Tell everyone how much of a horrible fucking person I am. Let's see who believes you." Malicious compliances. Yep, you heard that right, my dear listener. Compliances, plural. Now, whilst I'm not a big fan of confrontation, I also despise being yelled at. He wants me to take my stuff and go? And so be it. I just give him an, "Okay, Josh, I'll take my things and go." So I began to take it all back, gaming consoles, clothes, and I even grabbed the stand-up mirror I'd let him borrow ages ago. He tried to stop me multiple times, but I simply pushed past him and reiterated his words. He wanted me to shut up, grab my things, and go, so I did. PS2 I let him borrow, taking that back. GameCube he borrowed so he could play some games he got at a thrift store. That's mine, taking that home. I took everything that was mine, packed it into my car, and ignored him as he screamed, ranted, and raved at me, threatening to call the police. I simply dared him to go, as I was only taking back my things. When I left, I called Megan and Drake and told them what happened. They said they had my back in case things went awry after this. Then I let them in on the second thing he said. Tell everyone how much of a horrible person he is. Okay, Josh. Bet. Megan, Drake, and I went through our contacts for anyone who knew Josh and told them what happened. One of these people was Josh's own mother, who was absolutely livid at him, as Josh was living in his home on his mother and stepfather's dime. The fallout. Josh's reputation pretty much collapsed out from under him as evidence came to light, and Josh's various exes, emboldened by Megan and Drake's coming out with their stories, began to spread their own stories on what had happened. Josh's friend circle turned on him rather quickly, finding out how much of a jerk he actually was. What made all of this worse for Josh was all of these stories had evidence, such as texts, camera footage, and audio recordings. All of this evidence making it obvious that those Josh hurt weren't lying. Josh's mother and stepfather ended up pulling his sizable allowance due to this, and he couldn't afford his home, and was forced to move back in with them. Josh and I still don't talk anymore, and he had to sell a lot of his furniture and personal possessions to pay off the debt he'd managed to rack up after his allowance was pulled. I've heard that Josh has changed and is getting better, but after the crap he put me through, I'd rather be keeping my distance. 5. I'm 20 and female. This happened about a month ago during my last week working retail at a wireless electronics store. We basically sold phones and activated service for people. Around this time, we had been unbelievably slow. Like for the past 4 weeks at that store, we'd only seen maybe one person a day, if at all. Incredibly boring. And I was getting paid to basically stand around on my phone all day, because without customers there was nothing to really do at our location. There'd be a lot of times I'd completely zone out and forget I was at work, and I'd feel like a zombie when customers would come in. Like I was on autopilot, if that makes any sense. It's hard to snap out of it. But one day I was in this mode. I was working with a coworker who did not like me, and it always seemed like he'd go out of his way to avoid interacting with me. So I was inside, behind the counter, by myself, playing on my phone, while said coworker was outside talking on the phone to his wife, mom, dad, friends, whoever, out of sight. However, at this time, I thought he was in the employee back area. A lady walked in at this time, very energetic and bubbly, with her teenage son, and a dog carrier with a puppy inside. She seemed nice, but something felt off about her, and I had a bad feeling. She explained she had an appointment with us, and I was unaware that we'd had any, so my response was, "Oh, I didn't realize we had any today." Which it doesn't really matter if there'd been any kind of appointment. She was there, so she was going to be helped regardless. My statement seemed to throw her off, but I explained it wasn't a problem. I grabbed a nearby tablet to start opening up her account, and she started explaining to me that she was just going to leave the dog off to the side of her, as it had just been to the vet for a surgery. I wasn't sure if we were allowed to let people bring animals, but the dog wasn't hurting anyone, so I didn't care. It's important to note that our tablets work terribly. It is one of the main reasons I quit, because they decided to get rid of our computer systems and make our entire work process on the tablet. They're slow and glitchy, and the turnover rate in our district went from being balanced to insanely high because of this decision. They failed to troubleshoot the system all the way before releasing it as well, so there were a lot of problems. For some reason, my tablet wouldn't open, so I'm standing there trying to figure out why it wouldn't bring the lock screen up. The lady looks at me and goes, "Well, are you ready for our number yet? Sorry, 1 second please, ma'am." I put that tablet down and grabbed another tablet we had out that was ready, frustrated that the other one wasn't working suddenly. I start to open our system up when she interrupts me. Wait, this is a store on Gomez Street, right?" "Yes, ma'am. There's another one across the street as well, though. Why?" Do you think you could call them and see if they had any appointments for me? Sure, give me a second to look up their phone number. The store across the street from us, their number was harder to find because you had to use different keywords. It was a stupid layout because people would confuse them all the time. If you just typed in the store name and city name, it would bring up our store number. After a few minutes, I found their number and start dialing it on our store phone. As soon as the phone starts ringing, the lady interrupts again. Actually, since it seems you don't want to work with anyone, I think I will go across the street. This is kind of when I broke character, because at this point I was already over the job itself and was very frustrated. Not even with her, but her attitude and tone at the time absolutely infuriated me. I'm not saying I was in the right either, but the way it seemed to come out of nowhere also threw her for a loop. Like, was I not just assisting you? Was I not about to call you or blatantly refusing service? What the fuck? I tried to be polite and not catch an attitude, but it was hard to hide the frustration in my voice. Ma'am? I really don't care. It's entirely your decision if you'd like to go across the street.
What did you just say?
That I don't care. It's your decision whether you'd like to leave or not. I'm glad to help you either way.
Well, I think I will leave. I'll have you know I'll also be reporting you.
She actually wagged her finger. Go ahead. It's my last week anyway.
Is anyone else here? I'd like to speak to someone.
Yeah, let me go get him from the back. So I go into the back to get my coworker, but he isn't anywhere to be found. I hear her trying to open the door. Thank God for locks. Next thing I know, the customer is banging on the door with her fist, like violently. Totally freaked me out, and I was lost on what to do because I wasn't sure where my coworker was. So I just sat down and watched the cameras. Maybe I was an asshole, but going back to talk to her didn't seem like a good idea. This was all in front of her son as well, so that must have been embarrassing. My coworker finally walked back inside because it was the end of his shift, and he was about to clock out. I have no idea what was said between the two of them, but he was able to calm her down a little bit, though she still seemed pretty pissed because I could see her wagging her finger in his face, talking to him. He was super agitated as she was leaving, so it must have not been fun for him to deal with. He let me know that she did, in fact, have an appointment, and then left. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, number 85. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do boop the like button and leave a comment, and share the video around to all your friends and family and work colleagues, just in case they're thinking of eating your lunches or something similarly insidious. It could be a cautionary tale. Alright, and now we have a little birthday shout-out to do. This one I remember to do on time. Birthday shout-out goes to Sophie. Her birthday is today, the 30th of June. Yes, 30th of June. And she's turning 13. I hope you have a very lovely birthday. I hope you have a very nice birthday, Sophie. I hope your mum's making sure to spoil you, as is only appropriate on your birthday. But you only get to be spoiled one day of the year. You have to be a nice kid the rest of the time. And I think a birthday song is appropriate now. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sophie. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, I'm going to head off now. I'm going to make an omelette tonight. I got a new frying pan last week, was it? Whenever it was. It's doing a rather good job at my omelettes, and I have a hankering for another one tonight. So a lovely bacon omelette for me. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.